Hello and welcome to episode 453 of the Crate and Crowbar, a gaming podcast being recorded on the 14th of November, 2025. I'm Marsh Davis, the chill wind of death that sweeps the leaves from the trees and drives the animals shivering into their burrows, enshrouding the evenings in darkness. But tonight I am joined by the reassuring, warming beverage of the game development world, the hearty cinnamon-spiced swig of nourishment that is Jamie Britton. Welcome, Jamie.
Hello. I may be hungry. Maybe hungry to eat myself.
Well, drink yourself. Slurp it down, Jamie. Have you been doing anything to celebrate autumn this year?
I've been pretending to understand what people mean when they say they're cold, which is my normal tradition for autumn, where I go out in a t-shirt and people say, "Aren't you cold?" And I go, "Oh yeah," brr, and pretend that I am cold. Whereas actually, as a porky gentleman, I basically never feel cold anyway, so I have to sort of play along. So yeah, that's my main autumnal sort of tradition.
Is that like Prince Andrew not sweating? You just don't have a like.
Yeah, I'm similar to him in almost every way, except for the fact.
Yeah, sorry, I don't know why I reached for that particular comparison.
He doesn't exist. He doesn't exist anymore anyway. He's Prince. He's not Prince anything.
No,
he's not even a symbol. He's not even the artist formerly known as Prince. The Andrew formerly known as Prince.
Indeed. What have you been doing with yourself?
I've been playing a couple of videoed games. Should we talk about them?
Yeah.
Let's start off with Ball X Pit. So we got very excited about this game when we played the demo of it a while back. This is the sort of roguelike where you... it starts with the words "Balbalon has fallen," which I still maintain is a very funny opening crawl. And you are a bunch of guys who have taken it upon themselves to sort of go into this big hole. And is it a meteorite or a moon or something that's down there? Can't quite remember what it is. You're going down a series of levels, and you're essentially playing roguelike deck building Breakout, where you will walk along a themed corridor, snowy, Aztec-y, biblically accurate angel-y kind of spaces, and you will get balls, you will upgrade them, and you will bounce them around while enemies kind of march towards you. Each level has 3 kind of bosses. You need to defeat those, and then, basically you need to beat those levels, and then you can go on the lift again to go further down into the hole. The thing that's most striking about it, and we mentioned this when we played the demo, is just how nice it feels as a kind of dopamine machine. It's so fun to bounce the balls. It's so fun to bounce many, many balls. There are these particular kind of balls in the games, which are called... completely forgotten what they're called, but the very, very tiny ones. What are they called? Anyway, they might be called mini balls. But there's various powers and things that you can upgrade in the standard roguelike way. And my main mission with this game was to get as many balls on screen as possible, which takes a while before you can unlock the stuff that really kind of makes that pop off. But when it does, absolutely fantastic to have. I've got this on my Switch 2 as well, so it looks really lovely on that screen, and the kind of, the Switch 2's got really nice haptic kind of, vibration functions on it and stuff like that. So it's just a really fun game to play before bed. Things that don't work so well about it, I would say, is the kind of advancement layer, the kind of meta progression layer, which is also a game of Breakout, which you play on a map on the top level, where you're basically placing down your buildings, placing down your resource nodes, and then sending out the people you've unlocked to go and pick them up. And so you're collecting wheat and rocks and stone, and you use these to upgrade the buildings, upgrade your characters, unlock new sort of abilities, things like that. It's basically like the mirror in Hades is the thing I can sort of compare it to the most. But it's sort of pretending to be something more elaborate, right? I think I would have preferred just a mirror that you can sling points in, because I never found that top layer fun. In fact, I found it very kind of tedious and annoying because it's not easy to sort of work out what the best option is. And actually, past a certain point, it doesn't matter, because your ability to collect resources on runs or your ability to win runs as frequently as you need will essentially outstrip that top layer past a certain point. So it kind of like I had a mate texting me being like, "Oh, how should I arrange my farm and all that sort of stuff?" It's like it doesn't really matter. Just do your best with it, and eventually, maybe you won't be progressing as fast as humanly possible, but you'll still get there. And so it ultimately feels like a bit of a waste of time. Yeah, so that's one thing I wasn't too keen on. I think the other aspect is, and I'm going to talk about a lot more sugar in a minute, but I just wanted to cover the things that didn't work quite so well for me, because it's a game that like works really well as a demo. Like it's a fantastic 10 out of 10 demo.
Oh yeah.
And then the game itself is still great, but it doesn't quite have that it doesn't quite sustain that amazing first go on the game.
Yeah.
So another aspect I think this is perhaps becoming a little bit of a problem in the post Balatro world, post Vampire Survivor world, is this whole idea of the dopamine machine roguelike, right? Because I played a bunch of these now. There was a good one I think I talked about a while back, which was like one of those 2p penny pushers ones, which literally has like dopamine roguelike, I think is its genre on Steam or whatever.
Really?
Yeah, and it's fine. It's good. There's nothing wrong with these things, and it's a thing that kind of clicker games have been doing for ages as well, right? It's not that distinct from that, the idea of just like numbers going up being fun in and of itself. I think it can sometimes be a little bit awkward when it's bolted onto an action roguelike, particularly one that is essentially predicated on causing chaos, because after a certain point you kind of top out in terms of how substantive you feel like the choices you're making actually affect what you're doing, right? And so you're collecting balls, you're choosing your upgrade, you're choosing which balls to kind of fuse, you're choosing which things to re-roll and which things to banish from your run, all the kind of standard Vampire Survivor style stuff. None of it really matters. Like, as long as you're kind of not doing something like really stupid, generally you will be able to progress and win more levels, at least for me, more levels than you don't after a kind of certain tipping point. And I thought that was a bit of a shame. The game, you always play it on the highest speed, right? The game kind of can be toned down, and you can there's various things you can do to make it more strategic, like what you're firing and when you're firing and how you're sort of positioning yourself in the space. But ultimately, just getting really powerful and standing in one spot and speccing very slightly towards something that means you don't have to do anything like that is kind of the main strategy that you have there.
Yeah.
I don't know if you found that, Marsh, when you played a little bit of this, right?
Yeah, I played the demo a bunch, and then I played the main game. I have to say, my enthusiasm for the main game sort of slid off for most of the reasons that you've just identified. Really, like I don't really click with clickers. I don't care to have my time wasted. And I don't know if there was anything different between the demo and the full game in terms of the kind of maths underpinning it. But certainly in the full game, the first time you do a level, it is mathematically impossible for you to actually complete it. You just can't. You can't deal out enough damage, and that remains true for I don't know how many runs, maybe 8, 10. It's quite a few, and that just burnt through my patience. And I've gone back to it, and like I feel like I'm at a point now where I could beat the first level, but just the last couple of attempts I've tried at it, I've been dealt bad choices and haven't been able to. And so having that kind of that delayed gratification followed by just the RNG saying no, just killed my enthusiasm for the game outright. But it's a shame because I can see the game that would still successfully trick me into thinking I'm doing anything, with all these fireworks going off, and I had one amazing run. Which I only failed by a sliver of damage points at the very end, where I had, I think, all of the game's like area of effect spells kicking off all at the same time, just like all the rows of bricks being dealt horizontal damage and lightning damage and earthquake damage and vertical damage, and it was great. It was just I felt uber powerful in a way which. I absolutely didn't deserve, but nonetheless felt. And I'd like to get back to that point just for like a sense of I can do something for 5 minutes, which is going to trick my brain into thinking I'm having a successful life, and and it hasn't obliged. So I've been frustrated by that. But
I mean, despite all my criticisms, I bought it on the day it came out, and within a week I'd put 30 hours into it and completed it. It swallowed every available moment of time that I had, and I was never bored. I never found it tedious. It's mechanically lacking, but it doesn't matter because it still just feels so good. And there's a bunch of other stuff it does sort of further down the line, which I'll talk about a little bit. I mean, there's some real surprises in there I don't want to spoil. One of the ways in which it delights that game is with the characters that you can unlock, because the things that they can do are kind of crazy. Like I might spoil one of them, and one of the earlier ones that unlock. So if you really want to go in cold, skip ahead from this bit. But there's loads more like this further down the line, so I won't spoil any of those. So there's one character you can unlock who picks all of the upgrades for you. Like, so you'll get an upgrade and you'll see his little finger come up on the screen and he'll go, oh, this one, and he'll do that, right? And so you don't get a choice over what you upgrade. He does it for you, and that's a really good way of teaching you like different kind of builds that you can run.
Is it just random which he picks, or is he working towards something?
He's working towards something. He specs you into interesting kind of things like that. So if you're feeling like you can't be asked to like think about these things, the game gives you a reason not to, or the choice not to. As well as that, you also unlock quite early on the ability to take more than one character into a run, which means that you kind of combine their abilities, right? So they all have different abilities. And if you take in a character who has like a particularly weird ability and that guy, the guy who chooses your upgrades, then you get really interesting stuff going on with that too. And further down, this is spoilers back on, I won't say any more, but there are more characters who do even crazier stuff than that. Completely mad, game-changing things. Some of which completely obviate entire aspects of the game, and some of them make them much more complicated. And that
sounds great.
It's great. It's really lovely, and like there's clearly so much thought gone into like particularly the characters. Even the kind of like one sentence of lore you get with them and their designs and everything like that. It fits together so nice. And there's just so much invention. Particularly in that stuff. And it's something I feel that they could expand further down the line. The game also has like a really good system for like increasing difficulty. So with my game now, I'm on like New Game Plus, I guess, and on the kind of third level of that. It does get significantly harder. So your choices do start mattering. You do have to really think about what sort of things you're going to take into the levels. But I think probably the desire of the game for you to have fun means that by the time you get to that point, you've probably had enough of balls. Right. But it's got a lovely kind of pick up and play vibe. I mean, I just earlier today during my lunch break, I was like, I'm gonna have a quick go on it, and that kind of more thoughtful version of the game is there. But I can totally see why they didn't make it the one that comes up top, because I think they knew that they wanted people to just enjoy what they had.
Right.
It was funny because on a whim the other day I installed Into the Breach, right, which is kind of, sort of a very strange great-grandparent of this game in a funny kind of way, I guess. And how much you have to agonize over every decision you make in that game. Like between levels, like, am I going to like use this reactor core to heal my mech by 1? Or am I going to make my really shitty smoke bomb slightly more powerful? That is that could be a game making or breaking decision, and it's interesting to see how much kind of caffeine and methamphetamine has been kind of poured into the brains of the roguelike run based games in the time since then. I think mostly for good, right? But it's stark, the contrast between those things. But yeah, like I say, I think it's a really impressive game. It's clearly a labour of love. I really like the Devolver advert they did for it as well, which had Kenny Sun, who's a designer of it, who also did Twinfold, which was one of the very good mobile kind of Threes-like game. It was like, what if Threes was a roguelike? But they did a very funny, like one of their silly Devolver adverts where he was sort of talking about how he was a sole developer, and then the camera pans around to the entire team of people who are also working on the game with him. I thought that was quite good. Like, we're here too. And yeah, it's just it's clearly made with a lot of love and good humor and lots of ball puns. You can't go wrong. So yeah, I think, and plus it was cheap. It was like 10 or 12 quid or something. It's kind of it's a worthwhile investment for what you get out of it, I think.
Yeah, maybe I'll persist just to get the hit that I want from it.
Boing, boing, boing.
Boing, boing. Should I tell you about the game I've been playing?
From bouncing balls to
there's I don't think there's a segue.
No.
To Vampire the Masquerade Bloodlines 2. I was complaining about this game to you guys in our private Discord. Because the tutorial for it is pretty dire and angered me and made me wroth. And on top of that, it was quite a lukewarm reception, let's say, at most. But I think, Jamie, this will eventually be regarded as an underrated gem. I actually think there is a game within this game which is really good and people will love and its memory will endure. But for now, it sort of languishes under a cloud of very unmet expectations, and I don't think it's all the game's fault for that. I mean, part of it's down to the fact it's laying claim to the Bloodlines name.
Yes, a famously bad and broken game on release,
which is somehow
it's really hard to live up to. Yeah.
Well, I mean, you're right. Yeah, I mean, I think Chris made the same joke that he couldn't believe that a game with the Bloodlines name would be released in anything but a bit of a shambles. But I obviously the original Bloodlines, released in 2004, for all its flaws, was an enormously ambitious RPG, and it has. Its memory has been enlarged within the minds of those who've played it, such that it is now like, a vaunted progenitor of the sim genre. And
oh yeah, just to be clear, it was a bit of a disaster on release, but I have played that game in the last couple of years, and it remains really good.
Oh, really?
It's a very good game. Just for the breadth of it, basically, is pretty stunning.
Yeah. I mean, it is very broken still, though, right? I mean, I think
yeah.
in a lot of ways.
Yeah, it's completely confounding. You have to really, really want to play it and enjoy it, but it kind of it rewards that.
Yeah.
Like Deus Ex, the other kind of sim, is really interesting because that one, it's got a horrible first 4 minutes Deus Ex, but as long as you get past as long as you have to go somewhere and do something in that game, and then it all becomes this is one of the best games and it stands up. Whereas Bloodlines, that feeling persists for a couple of hours and never really goes away. but if you really, really want it, you can sort of see what's there.
Yeah, it's definitely got a cult status. Regardless of the state in which you can play it in today, I think it's just the kind of the level, the degree to which it is regarded would probably eclipse any attempt to succeed it, like any game purporting to be a sequel to Bloodlines is going to have a hard time living up to what people imagine the original Bloodlines to be. And this game is barely, it's not even in the same genre, actually. It really isn't a follow-up to Bloodlines 2 in that sense. It's not a sprawling, open-ended, immersive simulation. It just isn't. It's very linear. And but the thing is that's actually fine by me. Say what you like about how they've marketed the game, but I don't need it to be a sequel to Bloodlines. It just needs to succeed on its own merits. It just needs to be confident in the thing that it actually is. And what it actually is a terrific visual novel about a vampire detective who's unraveling this incredibly intricate and very well thought through web of vampire politics in a beautiful snowbound Seattle, and at the same time attempting to solve his own murder. And unfortunately, it is a terrific visual novel trapped inside a pretty exasperating combat game. And I hesitate to call the combat design bad, because I can imagine like in some sort of abstract sandbox way, it could be really good. But here it just feels like incredibly inappropriate to the kinds of things that you want to do in that game, and it just always feels unwelcome, at least in the quantities in which it is served, because it is a fucking slog. There's so much combat in it, and none of that combat really works in the constrained environments that the game presents. Like, it's this incredibly fast-paced, frenetic melee first-person game. It's like you are playing a Formula One car with fists. It is insane. Every time, like, you do these like 3-hit combos, and every time you've done the third hit, you've literally walloped yourself well past them. You're just like it's somewhere else. You've thrown yourself off a ledge. You constantly have to like be doing these tight donuts around enemies, like you're in a car park, and it's just I could conceive how, like, I mean, it's basically Condemned with new Doom speeds, and you could imagine like that working in Doom's massive open environments, but it does not work in a dive bar toilet, which is apparently 90% of what comprises the city of Seattle. And like, and I do caveat this by saying my brain is old, it is dying, it is slowly turning to bone, but I found it just completely nauseating and incoherent in a way which undermined actually the fantasy of being this ancient vampire bastard. Because you aren't like I can't remember what they're called in the vampire lore, neophytes or something like this. You aren't like a newly born vampire. You are an ancient vampire who's reawakened after maybe several hundred years of torpor. I can't remember, but the power level from the off is theoretically great. Like, it's really unusual for a game to introduce you to combat by having you one punch a cop and see them immediately ragdoll down a huge corridor and spang off a metal door. Like, it's just like, oh, okay, I know what I am. It's not human, and it should feel like enormously cool, but the way it expresses itself becomes just absolute farce because you have super speed, which should be amazing, but like the game doesn't account for the idea that you should be able to perceive your super speed in something like a coherent speed. And instead you're just like moving so rapidly that you can't stop yourself from throwing yourself up walls. Like the first like tutorial combats, you're fighting in this abandoned building, and I'm like immediately unintentionally mantling onto furniture or climbing walls because the environments are too small. You can't
puny mortals.
Yeah.
Watch as I mantle onto this ledge.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, and there's no way to avoid it really. There are a couple of powers you can pick up which permit a degree of stealth, but they're so unreliable, and your movement is so chaotic that you can basically just use that to choose how you start combat. Like, you can maybe pick off a straggler and then you're in it, you know, and ultimately you have to kill everyone because the game frequently gates progress by saying there are enemies still in the area, and the only thing you could do with enemies is completely fucking munch them. So it's and that feels like it feels frustrating because obviously the fantasy you're being presented suggests that there should be some greater degree of nuance with how you encounter these sort of obstacles. But even within the context of it being a full combat game, I found that stuff very vexing and unsatisfactory.
Yeah, and it's very contrary to the thing that the Bloodlines game does well is that, I mean, again, Chris probably turning in his bed, I was going to say great, turning in his coffin, hearing me get a bunch of RPG stuff wrong. Oh, hang on, you know all about RPGs as well, I just forgot that. But the whole like fantasy of the vampire thing is the masquerade, right? It's this social element that gives it its unique flavour, and the thing that makes Bloodlines 1 so fascinating is not the combat, because the combat's rubbish, or the stealth, which is also rubbish. It is the kind of the dance of trying to sort of navigate this complicated social faction system with all of these rivalries and that's the thing about that game that's an immersive sim, right? It's not so much with the hacking; it's with the social Fallout New Vegas vibe of it. And that whole aspect as well, which I know is sort of missing from this game, of the kind of bestial hunger of vampires, which is constantly, making them on the verge of losing control, which was also in that first game. And like, it's quite a specific fantasy that the Masquerade sort of presents, and it doesn't sound like that, at least in the kind of combat layer of this game, that it really is anything like that at all. Really, it's interesting because I mean, as you said, I'm sure you're about to outline the ways in which the game works, and I think the Chinese Room are an amazing choice for any game really with something like this, with a setting like this, right? Because they are pretty proven at doing narrative settings with unusual characters. I loved Still Wakes the Deep last year. We talked about it extensively on the pod. It was, kind of, even the games they've done I haven't liked, I've kind of still adored. They're still, and even in their kind of post Stan Penchbeck era, they seem to still have quite a lot going on for them, which I think is great. The thing I was before we started recording, I was telling you that was the thing I was going to say on the pod, and I can now tell you what it is, which is with this game and Atomfall and Mafia: The Old Country doing pretty well this year, doing better, I think, than a lot of them expected. It's one of the things that's made me a bit more positive about the game industry, in that there have been several AA plus kind of games that have come out, which are quite personal in their own way and quite unusual in their own little ways, and haven't been entirely sort of shunned by the public. In fact, have gone on to sell pretty well and get relatively good reviews. And I think, I don't know if anyone else feels this, but there is this kind of sort of standard inference at the moment in the industry that you can only succeed basically if you are a monstrous quadruple A release, or you are a micro budget, no money indie release. And it's just been nice to see a few games at least this year kind of tread in that space and do pretty well out of it.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know that this game has done well enough. Certainly not for it to get a sequel. But it's a shame, because I think there is an audience for these story-heavy games where the storytelling is actually very sophisticated, and we're seeing audiences embrace that. Like Dispatch has done huge numbers, and that's a pure narrative game. I think there's an appetite for this, and they didn't need to put combat in it. There's nothing about the game which demands it, really. There is large stretches which don't have combat, and they demonstrate within that it remains engaging and actually brilliant when it's kind of working on its own terms. And the credit for that is all down to the storytelling, and there's some extraordinarily strong character writing in this, which I think is just up there with some of the best character writing in games. And it doesn't put its best foot forward. Like, the tutorial part is difficult. They really struggle to tutorialize things coherently, to the extent where they ask you to do a thing and then you immediately try and do it and it fails you because you've done it wrong, even though it told you to do it at that moment. But
I love it when games do that.
and there's also a lot of onboarding that it needs to do, and it doesn't do that elegantly. You are, as I say, this ancient vampire called the Nomad, and you've awoken from this incredibly long torpor in modern-day Seattle, and that's disorientating in itself. There's lots of things about vampire society that it needs to kind of dump on you, and there's additional complications to the kind of initial setup, because you wake up and you have a second voice inside your head. The voice belongs to another vampire called Fabian. You also appear to have been branded with a sigil, which in some way constrains your powers. So even though that's quite a lot to kind of take on board, and you're immediately thrust into the world of vampire politics and somehow end up becoming the town's sheriff very quickly, so, which all feels a little kind of rushed and a bit too much. But like, within that is the setup for a lot of questions which become incredibly intriguing and delightful in the way that they get unpicked across the course of the game. Like, who awoke you? Who branded you? Why did they do either of these things? And why this other character, Fabian, is in your head? These are all like puzzles that get just increasingly kind of richer the further into the game you get. And as they kind of intersect with the complicated and extremely volatile political world of Vampire Run Seattle, as well as embroiling you in this century-old mystery surrounding these spree murders dating back to Fabian's like 1920s heyday. And that in itself, even taken out of the rest of the game, is just a legitimately good detective story. And the way it unfolds and reveals itself is really sophisticated, because it lets you play across these two different timelines, or multiple timelines actually. Because during Seattle's nights, you play as the Nomad with Fabian's voice in your head as well, and you're investigating these things in the present day while trying to appease the vampire court. But when the Nomad goes to sleep during the daytime, you shift to kind of Fabian's dream memories, and they put together related events back, put them together in the past. And the interplay between these two things allows for like a really clever way of sequencing the sort of unlocking of knowledge that illuminates things and, allows the mystery to be unraveled. And more importantly than all of that is that it's really enjoyable to spend time with both of these characters, because the Nomad is the more malleable of the two in terms of like the way the player can lean on the expression, but she's always imperious, and she has this kind of archaic way of expressing herself, which is sometimes very funny. And the player can sort of push that towards being a psychotic, tyrannical monster, if you please. But the writing is delicate enough that allows like a balance between these things. And even if you play the Nomad as someone who's quite reasonable and even empathetic, like I did, there is still like this sort of predator level severity lurking beneath her surface, which feels genuinely dangerous in an exciting way. And then Fabian absolutely steals the show. He's this vampire detective. He's a Malkavian vampire, which for those who are unfamiliar with the Vampire the Masquerade's lore, the whole vampire populace is divided into clans who are descended from single progenitors, and each of those progenitors has gifted particular traits to those who share their bloodline. And Malkavian vampires are known for having this sort of visionary madness, basically. And the way that expresses itself through Fabian's characterization is that he's sort of like Fox Mulder / Noir Gumshoe, in that he is like, he sort of plays footsie with noir cliche without ever being, dull enough to capitulate to it. But he's also like this raving conspiracy theorist, and the way that works in terms of like, you're often negotiating dialogue trees in this game, and the way that works here as like it's a really inspired expression of that pairing of insight and madness, because you can interrogate inanimate objects, and you have this back and forth with them, with Fabian's projected anthropomorphization of that object. And the voice actor does both jobs, and he does a phenomenal job of having conversations with himself. So you'll end up having like a conversation with a flirtatious pool table called Pockets. and it's so brilliantly written, because it always leaves you in doubt as to whether this is just maybe a bizarre mental device that Fabian uses to interrogate what he unconsciously knows. So the Pockets will say, won't necessarily answer a question directly, but will say, but do you detect that whiff of paint or something like that? And then Fabian will be like, oh yeah, I do detect a whiff of paint. Maybe it's something to do with this paint plant or whatever, So you're never quite sure whether he's gleaning like supernatural revelations by psychic means, or he's just a fucking nuts vampire. But it's really good, and you can interrogate real people, of course. And if they won't talk to a cop or a detective, rather, you can use your Malkavian powers to appear to them as someone else. But in quite a brilliant twist, you don't get to pick who you appear as. In fact, you don't even know who the interrogatee believes they can see. So you spend the first part of the conversation blagging your way through the dialogue tree until you can figure out who you are meant to be without triggering their suspicion. And it's sort of, there's no real repercussions for failure in this. Like, there isn't the kind of branching social game that existed in the previous Bloodlines. It's very linear. It is much more like a storybook, a visual novel. But it just doesn't matter. Like, I don't care. The concept for all of this stuff is so fun. Fabian is so much fun to inhabit. He's a funny character and he's deeply weird without leaning too hard into kind of noir caricature. And he is such a foil for the entire setting because this, it's a dark mythos, isn't it? Vampire the Masquerade, and vampire society is all dark and gnarly. And yet all these kind of high-powered, feral motherfuckers that you meet are just absolutely sick of Fabian's shit. Like, they're these super serious, terrifying night-stalking predators, and they're just like, oh, I swear to God, Fabian, if you try and fucking mesmerize me one more time, and then you go and do it. You go and fucking mesmerize them. And they're so pissed off. It's fantastic stuff. I absolutely loved it. And it's just notable that while you play as Fabian, there's no combat, there's no parkour. In fact, you can't even jump. The only thing you can do is like accelerate time so you could walk through the city slightly quicker, which incidentally has this amazing kind of infinite, ever-escalating tonal soundscape behind it. And so, in fact, the sound design across the game is superb. But the point is that there's no action game stuff at all, and you just don't miss it. Like, all you do is go back and forth between a couple of characters and piece together a mystery in your head in a quite a linear way, but it's so well written that the constraints of that just do not matter.
It's funny because one thing that's clearly been brought through from the first game is that kind of sense of humor, right? Because even though, like, I went into Bloodlines 1 thinking it was going to be kind of edgelordy, and it is, but it's also funny about that. It's funny about it's self-deprecating and kind of literate about its own ridiculousness, which is very refreshing. You get lots of things where people kind of trying to work out stuff about vampires based on actual logic and kind of coming up short, and they find lots of lots of jokes and funny things in that. Which sounds like they've managed to bring at least a little bit of that humor into this game and kind of had some fun with the excesses of the setting.
Yeah, they do, and it's not even. It never gets so far as kind of mocking itself. Like, I came away really caring about Fabian as a character, and also my version of the Nomad. They are rich three-dimensional characters. The fact that they're also funny doesn't feel like it's pastiche or like a non-diegetic humor. It feels like
just people who are funny because the world around them is faintly ridiculous, and they have to respond to that in some way, and that's just a realistic thing that real people do.
yeah, it's really good, and like, not everything about the game wraps up as satisfactorily as I would have liked, but within it, Fabian has his own arc within the larger plot, and that does cap off in a really satisfying way. I was very pleased by it. Just the investigatory techniques, even though it's all pretty linear, like, I just think the imagination behind those and the way that they're described is alone worth the price of admission. And the whole plot that they reside in is this just fascinating, intricate murder mystery, and political intrigue. And the combat isn't good. But the memory of that will just winnow to nothing. Whilst I think Fabian and the Nomad and some of the other characters you encounter will stick with me for a long time. And it is a shame in a sense that I suspect the Chinese Room won't get a second shot at doing a Bloodlines 3.
No. It's a game that makes you care about its characters. That's a rare thing, and I don't just mean you. I mean one, but like it's I do sort of mean you, but like most games, you're kind of, at best, you hold the characters in a base level of contempt. Like, sure, Axel from Streets of Rage. Sure, you're good at walking down this road and punching people in the head with the same basic moveset, but I really don't care what happens to you ultimately. Where it's like, yeah, to be able to make it. I mean, obviously there are degradations beyond that, but still, I think it's impressive that, particularly with the circumstances with which that game was made, where it was passed along from a couple of studios, really troubled, based on a classic. Like, regardless of the reviews and the response, like, it's clear that they've made something that's very heartfelt and true to them, and that is, it's an impressive thing to do.
Yeah, absolutely. Jamie,
speaking of caring about characters in games.
Oh, are you going to tell me about the rich lore behind Battlefield 6?
Battlefield 6, which I have been playing. Oh, fucking hell, this game. Like, it's I haven't played a big shooty bang bang game for a very long time. Like, I can't remember the last time I picked up a Duty's Call or a Battles Field and and decided to kind of give it a good go. But a bunch of my friends were playing this one. I thought, okay, fuck it, I'll try it. But it's that weird thing of arriving at a party where there's so much stuff that's been established and so much stuff that's kind of all agreed on and everyone else understands. It's a very strange. It's like being a new kid going from one elaborate private school to a even more elaborate private school where there are all kinds of special things. You don't go into that office unless you really have your wits about you, and here's all these like names that we're going to insult you with that you're not going to understand. It's very strange. But I have to say, I found myself being really, really taken in by it. So the first thing I played was the free mode, which is their battle royale mode. It's called RedSec, which I think sounds like something you take to cure headaches or possibly like calm down your stomach ulcers. But it's called RedSec, and you can play that for free, and it's a battle royale game. And the great thing about it is that you don't, and this is the thing people are constantly criticizing it for, you don't have to do that thing that you have to do in most battle royale games, which is build your guns. Where it's like, oh, I'm going to take this gun, I'm going to put this stock on it, I'm going to put this handle on it, and this pointy bit on the end. And by the time it shrinks to nothing, this gun is going to be the best it's going to be. I hate that. Fucking hate that aspect of battle royales because I never know what I'm doing. I'm always just putting random things on random things, and I cannot be asked to learn what stock should go on what fucking gun. Right?
Quite right.
In RedSec, you just shoot, you get whatever gun it is, and it'll be a type of gun. So it'll be an assault rifle or a submachine gun or a shotgun or whatever. And then you just are basically going to upgrade that gun with upgrade packs that you find. I mean, if you find a different gun you want, you can pick that up. But because the base game, it turns out, is full of that, I'm going to make my god gun out of all these like elaborate parts, which I will slowly unlock over many hours of play. Because they don't want to do that in the battlefields, in the battle royale setting. It is just, an upgrade pack for my shotgun. Now I can choose whether I want my shotgun to do more damage or have better range or whatever. And that immediately makes that like so much more fun than almost every other battle royale game, because I hate the gear upgrade aspect. I love the vibe of being kind of out in this mad, kind of beautifully rendered world with all this crazy shit happening. So I really, really enjoyed that aspect of it. And I played a good few rounds of that first. And the free one, it also gives you a couple of maps to play on in kind of other modes. So it's quite a nice way to get a sort of demo / introduction to it. So then I got the main game. And yeah, it's extraordinary. Like, you fire up the main game, it presents you with this sort of menu screen, which I guess is like Netflix, right? This is what these games do now. I've seen it in the Call of Duties as well, where you have like a big splash page with big blocks of like different versions of the game you could play, of which there are apparently thousands. All of them involve shooting men really quickly in the hope that they die before you. It's like, I wonder if I want to do it. I wonder if I want to shoot men in this specific mode, which is very slightly different from this other specific mode. And then firing up the game on one of those modes is a real humbling experience, because it really is just constantly being shot by snipers on the other side of maps again and again and again. and the game doesn't tell you that like you probably don't want to respawn like right down at the bottom of the hill, which again is obvious after you've put a few hours into it. But for me, coming to this game completely cold, I got no idea what I'm doing. So I really do feel like for the first few hours, I was just sort of running around, being set on fire, shooting my own teammates, getting in a jet and immediately crashing it into a mountain, and everyone shouting at me for doing it. Real kind of, sort of Mr. Bean goes to, global war offensive type stuff. But it's so like exquisitely and perfectly put together. And you have to it's weird, you have to kind of come to the party on it. Like, I've never been able to get my head into the mindset of like being a highly trained military psychopath, capable of murdering 19 men in a row before someone finally kind of manages to catch me with a straight. It's like the mindset you have to get into in these games. And I think it's something that people, who've been playing these games for years and years and years, it's just sort of second. It's just very instinct for them. But I find it really hard to kind of think about the stuff you have to think about in a Battlefield game, right? So you have to think about the people who are shooting guns at you primarily. That's the main thing you have to think about, is like not being shot. But that's a complicated thing, right? If you haven't played these games before, you have to find cover. You have to work out ways to kind of cross battlefields where there's like 19 snipers who have 4,000 hours in this game that only just came out who are going to one-shot you in the head. You have to think about, how your guns kind of play in the environment and a whole bunch of other stuff, right? It's just full of things like that. And the game is full of strategies and things that you can do and things that you can do to obviate other players' kind of skill and things that you can't do to obviate other players' skills. And so what I ended up doing was basically kind of trying to treat the game like I would a FromSoft game, right? I went, okay, if this was a FromSoft game, I would be perfectly happy to like throw myself up against this boss for 20 hours, which I've done. There was one boss in Sekiro that took me that long. But so let's say at least 10 hours before I kind of started to fall to pieces, right? And actually treating it in that way and making it, because up to that point I was just starting to feel really miserable about it. It cost me 60 quid, and it was 60 quid I'd spent to just get shot in the head again and again and again and get one kill on one match that wasn't even it was just because the other guy made a stupid mistake and crawled out of cover in the wrong moment, right? But when I started treating it like a Dark Souls game, and that was when I started having fun. So there was a mode that a friend of mine introduced me to, which is called like relaxed mode or relaxed breakthrough or whatever, where they basically populate a good deal of the map with bots. So some of you are people, some of you are bots. And that immediately makes it more fun because the bots are incredibly stupid. I shot 5 of them in a row on my first game where they just all ran to the into the sort of line of my gun and just killed them all. I was like, well, that felt great. I mean, even though they were just bots, who cares? That was brilliant. But also a bunch of people on there are also real people as well, right? So it's actually a really good training mode for the game because you're going to get a few kills in, you get your kind of confidence up, and you can sort of slowly kind of build the skill set that you need to play the game. And once I started doing that, I started to really enjoy it. And once I started to kind of not die immediately in every map, then you can really start to experience some of the kind of real joys that the game has in it, right? So the level of chaos that these maps simulate is really, really exciting and thrilling and crazy. There was one particular battle I was playing where I was in a warehouse and I was sort of in one of the warehouses on the battlefield, quite a tightly kind of packed one. And then I was sort of in a gunfight with a couple of people's up on the stairs. And then a tank rolls into the warehouse and smashes down the wall and starts firing shells around the place. And just fucking the sheer chaos and madness and hell that broke loose, and just sort of scrambling over crawling masonry and shooting a guy who was trying to do the same thing and rolling outside. It was just this wonderful, completely visceral level of chaos and madness that is actually really fun to try and navigate through and survive. It's not just about watching that spectacle. It feels incredibly involving and immersive, and particularly if you're playing with headphones, like things like shooting a gun in a stairwell, which is not something I ever would recommend to anyone to do, apart from in this game, because like the sound of the bullets like echoing up and down the stairs, they've got it so right. The sound in this game is just wall to wall incredible, and a huge tool as well, because you start to hear things like the pitter patter of bullets striking the ground around you when you run out of cover, and that obviously means you're about to get shot in the head and die. There's nothing you can do about it, so that sort of thing. But there's just, in almost every match I've played, there is something completely crazy that's happened. So my like total, like the best number of kills I'll get in a match against real people is maybe, I don't know, 7 or 8, depending on how long they last. But I managed to like quadruple that in the last match I played, because I jumped into a tank at the last minute that someone else was driving, and what ensued was just 5 minutes of the most glorious slaughter and chaos caused by me and me alone that I've ever played. It was just many soldiers running towards me, trying to fuck up my tank, and me just being like vaporizing them with machine guns and then shelling the building that they were in so they couldn't get out, and it collapsed on top of them. And it was just like absolute sheer pleasure and madness and kind of bloodlust. As much fun as I've had in a game, and I can't remember when. And it's like, it's so absurd. Like, I don't even know who any of these people are. I don't know what we're fighting for. Like, you basically have a team, like one of the teams are called like, I don't even know what they're called, but they're like, we talk like this. Hey, how you doing, soldier? And then there's another one who they are just like, oh, we are from some country that is not America. We are half the people in this game. It's just so mad and stupid. But there's so much kind of glory in how crazy and mad it is. And actually, once you start enjoying that aspect of it, the skill aspect of it starts to be even more fun, right? So being like getting into an encounter and winning it, not because you're good at aiming your gun and shooting it, because I'm not, but because the game constantly presents a sort of these little games of kind of chicken that you can play with people, or like, you know, okay, I've run out into cover, and so has that guy over there. We've both run back in. Now we have to decide what to do next. You know, and there's just so many possibilities of what you can do in that moment. You know, you can chuck a grenade. You can try and go around the side. You can stay where you are. It's quite funny when you just stay where you are, and then after like a minute of waiting, you'll poke your head out and you'll just shoot you with a sniper rifle. Like, yeah, oh, you did that too. And then there's also just the kind of variety of things you can do with the various toys they give you. So you've got rocket launchers, you've got drones that you can sort of fly up in the sky. I quite like doing that if I'm feeling a bit stressed out by all the senseless slaughter. You can pick up a drone and fly it out over the enemies and tag baddies for other people to shoot. There's you can be a support guy. You can run out and revive people who have been shot with defibrillators, which I don't think is how it would work in the real world, but seems to do quite well for them. You can also kill
electricity dissolves bullets.
It does, yeah.
That's how it works.
You can also do a thing where it's happened to me a couple of times where I'm running towards someone in a bombed out room to resuscitate them, and then the guy who killed them runs out of hiding, and you defibrillate him in the face and kill him. That's quite good. There's quite a lot of comedy in the game, in that kind of funny, mad way, because I think that's the thing I sort of missed when I played these games in the past. When I played Call of Duty Modern Warfare 1 or whatever, and not the remake, the one that came out in the early noughties, right? That was so much about just horrible people online being really good at that one game and just killing you. But actually, they've been really working on this for, it turns out, 6 games into making something that's actually, if you don't want to go and shoot people, you can still have fun and you can still contribute. And you can still get little wins in where you want to. And it doesn't feel like you can look at the leaderboard, obviously, whatever you like, but actually it's much more about the team and how you create those wins. And like, there was a moment in a game today where I made the play in a mission which kind of sealed the deal, right? I managed to run into the building that we had to occupy for a certain amount of time in order to, win the game or whatever. Shot a guy, shot another guy. Normally the third guy would kill me, but for whatever reason, I was able to pull out my sidearm and pop him in the head and kill him there. And then that was the kind of the victory point of the whole mission, right? And they might have been the only 2 guys I killed in the whole thing, but like, it's worth it for those moments, right? And that's the thing I've kind of realised about these games is, I guess the very best players have these kind of constant orgasmic killing spree kind of flow states that they get into. The rest of us are much more kind of Mr. Bean coded. But actually, that's fine because you can have a lot of fun with that, especially if you're playing with a friend or something, which I've been doing a bit of. I haven't touched the campaign at all yet, so I'll be interested to see what they've done there. But certainly, it feels like there's so much about it that's kind of Byzantine and bonkers. Like, the speed at which you unlock stuff is mad. I got the battle pass, and then I immediately thought, why did I fucking do that? Like, it's stupid. Like, I don't need any of this stuff. And plus, it's like, it's all unlocking at the rate of like 1 gun stock per 5 million guys mutilated or whatever. It's just really, it's really stingy with that stuff for such an expensive product. But in play, especially when you got headphones on and the kind of the bullets are flying and helicopters are falling out of the sky and everyone's screaming, it's really something. And it's a fantasy of war that kind of, it's strange to say, sort of brings out the kid in me, right? It kind of brings out a kind of weird, like that kind of childhood vibe of running around the playground, making fart noises, pretending they were machine guns. You know, it's got that kind of playing at war thing, which kind of feels deeply unserious. And I think that's what kind of seals the deal for me. Like, it's in no way grim. It's just over the top and ridiculous and mad. And so, yeah, I'm having a really good time with it.
So all the kind of the pleasure of it is that located purely in like the 30 seconds of fun, that kind of moment to moment mosh pit, or are you kind of engaging with like the strategy of each round? How much does that matter to you, and how malleable is it? Because Battlefield has long been plagued by people not engaging with that and making those rounds unenjoyable for everybody else because they just stick at the back and snipe.
That is still a problem. I think it's a lot of people who've played these games for a long time don't like that quite a lot of the maps are too open and there are too many snipers, and that has been kind of annoying. But to be honest, it's kind of forced me to think about what I'm doing a bit more. You know, like maybe it is a bit harsh for other players, but for me, it's meant that I've had to think about clever routes through the battlefield. I would say on the strategy level, the game is kind of genius in that at a high level, it does it all for you. Basically, it's going to point you towards which point you need to attack. And everyone just runs towards that. And in some clever way, that feels very realistic. It feels like you're being kind of pushed backwards and forwards in a kind of proper battlefield setting. And I think a lot of the joy in it is in the kind of the way that the maps are laid out, so that they give you choices or they push you into having little mini skirmishes in one building, right? So there's lots of kind of urban sort of maps and a sequence where 3 of you run into a room which is empty, and then 2 baddies come into that, and you kill one of them, and one of them gets away, and then he comes back with his friends, and then you lose him in a smoke bomb, and then you go sort of hunting him down, and then he stabs you in the back of the neck, and you die. Like, that is kind of where the game really kind of comes to life, because they feel like these they don't feel spammy or kind of like someone's just using some sort of wall glitch to sort of stay out of your sight. Like, they feel physical and real in a way that's really satisfying. And very, and like I say, quite funny in sort of a weird way. So that aspect I feel like is quite well taken care of in a funny kind of way. There was one other moment. This is just another moment of just glorious destruction, and it was in the battle royale mode, where I just had a moment which was just like, I was standing on a balcony, I was looking down at the road beneath me, and there was a tank that was trundling past, which was being driven by an enemy player. I thought he hadn't seen me, so I was waiting for him to go, and then just as he was about to turn the corner, the turret swivels round and faces me. He's about to fire, and I got to do the thing where I was like, oh shit, and sort of turned around, sort of backed into the room, at which point he fired, and I kind of jumped off the balcony that was sort of on the inside of the building, and the whole front of the building sort of disintegrated around me. And I managed to get away from the blast. But it was just so like spectacularly cinematic and mad, and it was just wonderful, and purely generative in its own way as well. That was something that you would make in a Call of Duty game in like 2005, right, as a scripted moment, and this was purely just for me and that tank. And yeah, that was a real kind of like, oh yeah, this game's great. I might have to buy the full thing now.
And so you did. What we've been discussing isn't just RedSec, right? It's the whole shebang.
I played a bunch of RedSec, and then I got the whole thing. Yeah.
Do you still go back to RedSec? Is there any kind of attraction for that battle royale mode for you still? Now you have the full fat version.
Yeah, no, I actually think the battle royale version's really good. I think it's simpler than a lot of other ones I've played. But actually, there's been some. I mean, I've been on the team. I'm not going to say I won a match. I definitely wasn't the person who won it for us. But like, I've been on the winning team and contributed somewhat. I helped. It's like when you have a little kid hang up the washing with you or whatever. But it's the battle royale mode is still fun. I think people are a bit on the fence about it, but it feels really good to me. And they give you a bunch of toys, which is great. You can. I don't know if there's any other battle royale games where you can get in a stealth bomber and strafe the other teams with big bombs. I don't have the army words, I'm afraid, Marsh. Big bombs.
It sounds good. I would love to play it, but I can't because I'd have to edit my BIOS in some way, and I'm afraid to do that. Anti-cheat measures require some changes, apparently.
I wanted to play that because Tom Senior mentioned on our Discord that you've been playing the new beat 'em up from the League of Legends devs, and I tried to install their anti-cheat software on my PC to give that a go, and it just completely like one of those things where like as soon as it was installed, my computer froze and didn't unfreeze until I found a way to like surgically remove that program from my hard drive, at which point it immediately started again. It was ridiculous. Like, thanks, guys.
Yeah, I can't afford to do irrevocable harm to my PC, so I will not fiddle with the BIOS. I will sacrifice Battlefield 6 for that. I'm a bit suspicious that that's really a requirement. All of these big tech companies, you saw that chart of their kind of circular investment policy where they're just passing around the same $1 billion between all these different companies. They all have a vested interest in pushing people to upgrade hardware, and it just feels like there's a lot of artificial pressure being put upon people to change their hardware, or in order to change their software. Like I can't upgrade to Windows 11, for example, without changing my hardware.
Hey, speaking of, we didn't discuss this, but did you see that Valve have announced a bunch of new things?
Yes, they're very tempting, actually.
Yeah,
because as Windows and Microsoft slowly circle the toilet. They've been in the toilet for a long time, but they haven't fully flushed themselves, I would say. For that reason and many others, I would like to get off Windows. And Valve's OS, Steam OS, I don't know if they have plans to make it a more adaptable operating system for anything other than games, but I think I could conceivably switch to Mac and then just replace my entire PC gaming apparatus with a Steam OS-driven box of delights.
Yeah, I mean, I've done a day's work on a Steam Deck, like just on the desktop mode there, and it's fine. It does the job for that. I mean, I know they're going to release They keep saying they're going to release the image of the new operating system, and then they don't do it. But presumably they will at some point. But yeah, I love the look of it all. I think
price dependent, obviously. Who knows?
Yeah, I mean they did that great thing with the Steam Deck where it was like cheap, for what it was. Be interesting to see if they can get close to that again. But I mean, the Steam Deck is, I said on the pod before, it's my favorite bit of hardware I think ever. I love it. Like my Steam Deck is like a launch one. It was one of the first ones that kind of was delivered, I think, and in this country, and it's completely knackered. There's loads of things broken about it, but I still use it daily. It's a wonderful object, and I think if they can keep going with that kind of attitude, I think it's a really exciting time. Like, I love the look of their VR set as well. I think that's a really interesting shrug from Marsh there on the VR.
Yeah, I'm still not convinced that is any sort of future, but some people like it.
Some people are dreamers, Marsh. I just want to play Beat Saber with something that's not going to make me feel like I'm going to die of heat exhaustion under the
right.
Because being cold is not a problem for me, but being overheated is a massive problem.
Should we end the podcast there, Jamie?
Yeah, why not?
That is all the podcast we have time for. You can send us a question if you like at questions@crateandcrowbar.com. All these recordings are uploaded as videos to YouTube, where you can find other stuff by us. The address for that is youtube.com/crateandcrowbar. And thanks as always to our backers on Patreon. You can back us too at patreon.com/crateandcrowbar, or you can join our lovely Discord community, a special group of very special people, the link for which is on our website, crateandcrowbar.com.
Hey, Marsh, can I plug something very quickly?
Plug away, Jamie.
So, we're recording this on 14th of November. On the 29th of November, which is a Saturday, I'm going to be doing a careers thing at Comic-Con in Birmingham. So me and someone else from Maverick Game are going to be doing a thing about getting into games and trying to get jobs in games and stuff like that. So I just wanted to mention that if anyone wants to come along.
Is that you leaning into the microphone and saying, good luck?
Yes, absolutely, yeah. How did you get into television, Jamie? My dad gave me a job on his show I didn't deserve. So if you can just do that would be great.
No, I didn't mean that you had prospered through good luck. I meant that in order to get in the games industry now, of all times, you need an awful lot of luck.
I know. I just love necking myself on my own nepotism. It's the only way to be okay with it.
Oh.
But yes, that's in Birmingham. I think we'll be on 11 on Saturday morning in Brum. So do come along if you fancy. I went to the one in London a couple of weeks ago, and it was wonderful. I had a great time.
Very nice. Very nice indeed. All right. That's it. I've been Marsh Davis. Bye.
Bye. Have a good day, everybody.